So as you can see here, I've got a report from The Guardian about a record number of cargo ships being stuck outside of LA at Long Beach. So what's been happening here? Well, I noticed over the past several weeks that there were claims of thousands of cargo ships waiting to dock and unload in LA. And this was just all over various social media platforms. People were sharing this like crazy. Well, after digging into it, as far as I can tell, this number is pretty greatly exaggerated, though there is something peculiar going on here without a doubt. After cross-referencing a couple of sources, the number I'm coming up with seems to be 60 to 80 cargo ships at any point over the past several weeks that have been stuck out waiting to dock, which is a drastic increase over the typical numbers of 1 to 2 ships waiting at anchor at any given time. Now, I think it goes without saying that a supply pinch like this is going to only continue to damage the national economy at a time where we're already seeing increased inflation at very high levels. Just think about it. Gas is at a major high right now. We're seeing prices exceed $5 per gallon in some areas, such as California. I know personally where I live, there's gas prices exceeding $3, and it hasn't been below that, I don't think, for months at this point. Food prices, the same thing's happening. Everything at the store seems to be getting more and more expensive, with meat and dairy products often leading the way here with high prices. Each time I go, I get less and less for the same amount of money. Just the availability of products also seems to be somewhat limited lately. It's becoming increasingly difficult to find items that were once common. A while back, people I know were trying to order some rice online just to have it on hand because they were worried about food shortages. And turns out it's actually pretty difficult to find it right now. I think a lot of people were having the same thoughts as they were and trying to order that in. Plus, as we're looking at right now, pinches in the supply chain, it's going to be difficult to get that on here. And it's really weird because normally you could order several pounds of rice for relatively cheap online. We got shortages of all kind of random non-edible products as well. Most notably, I'm sure you've heard about, is the semiconductor shortage that's happening right now. And this is a huge issue because our country's inability to produce enough has led to a massive shortage in us relying on nations such as China to supply us, which is frankly kind of embarrassing and should be an embarrassment to anyone who has a little bit of pride in this country. And this shortage is critical because it affects all industries in some way or another, since semiconductors are the backbone of the modern electronic sector. And there are parking lots full of hundreds of otherwise functional vehicles that just need chips in order to operate. And these cars cannot be sent out to anyone because they have no electronics inside. Think about that. Hundreds of cars otherwise able to be driven, except they're lacking electronics because our country doesn't produce enough. And instead, we're waiting to get them from China. But back to the LA ports. It's being reported that this backup is the result of a complicated combination of factors that are primarily all the result of the pandemic in some way or another, which you probably suspected. Now, for starters, the LA Long Beach port is already the largest port in the United States, processing 40% of container imports and 30% of container exports. Now, it's being reported that COVID safety precautions at the port are part of what's slowing down the processing speed. I don't know the details of what that entails, but I can imagine that in order for anyone to board or onboard the ship, there has to be some sort of testing process or something, because I'm sure it's California. So, they've got some of the strictest COVID safety guidelines in the nation at the moment. So I can only imagine that is contributing to this in some way. There's also reports of a truck driver shortage and worker shortage in general, which seems to be slowing down the speed in which cargo can first be removed from the ships and then removed from the port. And another factor contributing to this that I was able to dig up is that, so while US customers have still not resumed post-pandemic levels of spending on restaurants and travel, things what I'll call home goods, such as appliances, clothing, workout equipment, etc., are being bought at record highs right now, still way over pre-pandemic levels. And something else to consider is that these products primarily come out of Asia, hence having to pass through the LA ports. Now, holiday spending is also surging the demand, since this is the time that retailers purchase products that they use to stock their shelves for the holidays. Now, this combination of factors all together seems to be the primary reason that the LA ports have become so backed up. Now, this also comes at the same time an oil spill has occurred at Huntington Beach, which is in very close proximity to Long Beach. In fact, there has been some speculation, although nothing concrete that I'm aware of, that suggests the port backup and the massive number of ships anchoring offshore could have actually caused or contributed to this spill in some way. Now, I want to show you this map here that the Guardian has. And if you look here, you'll see that Long Beach is right here. Everything out here are various ships that have docked, and Huntington Beach is right here. So as you can imagine, the cleanup from that spill and all the ships in the area are, I would have to imagine in some way or another, are contributing to this backup. And I would not be surprised at all that the large number of ships in the area somehow, either directly or indirectly, caused this spill. But I digress. Now, as a result of this, major logistics companies are now resorting to sending their products to any open port on the West Coast, regardless of the convenience of cost, which, as you can imagine, will only further increase the cost of goods if this is allowed to continue on. Now, if we switch over to CBS Los Angeles, they're reporting that as many as 500,000 shipping containers could be waiting off the ports of LA. Now, as I said earlier, there's only, from what I can tell, 60 to 80 cargo ships that are having to dock off at any given moment. But when you break it down into cargo containers, that suddenly makes it seem a lot more dire. We're talking about millions, if not even billions of dollars worth of product that are waiting out there that cannot be shipped into the country at the rate that it needs to be. Now, reading this report, CBS says that they expect this issue to continue on, not just for the rest of this year, but for years to come. And they're citing problems such as a lack of infrastructure needed at the port to meet this new demand of product. Our lifestyles have changed so much at this point from COVID that it's likely that these spending patterns will not go back to pre-pandemic normals for some time to come. And in order to continue to manage this volume of product, there needs to be some serious upgrades made to the LA port. And they're using this to make a case for the infrastructure bill that I'm sure you've heard about, that Congress has been debating for some time now. Now, whether there's any truth to that or not, I don't really know, but the claim does make sense on some level. So what does all of this mean in terms of our lives? Well, I don't know for sure, but this is something I plan on keeping an eye on. What I would say as we head into winter months, things are only going to get more expensive, and the transportation of goods will only get more difficult. While I'd like to think we'll see a resolution to these increasing costs, I'm afraid that times are only going to get harder. And I do not really see any indication that our current government has any interest in solving these issues in any meaningful way. In fact, their solution seems to just be to continue to spend, but I digress. In the meantime, I guess stock up on what you need and order any holiday items out in advance, because they might not be available if you wait. Now, if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment down below. I do plan on reading the comments because I would love to get your feedback and improve my commentary for you all. Thank you.